Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the OPL Breakdown. My name is Scott Windows Monkey and I'm here with Nick General, the usual co-host. So today's guest is the previous Abyss mid laner, Frae. So just to give you guys a bit of background on Frae's career, Frae played as the mid laner for AAO in the Challenger Series in 2015, then got picked up by OPL Team Immunity for the relegations in 2015, where he carried pretty hard to keep Immunity in the OPL. So in 2016, he role swapped to ADC after Immunity became Hellions, after a wee oopsies where they forgot to pay their players for a whole split. And after 2016, where Hellions didn't have the best success, actually got relegated, he joined Abyss Esports following Lucha's competitive ruling as a mid laner. And now he's playing in the OCS again with Abyss still for Abyss Academy. So actually, just a wee funny story. So I got to coach Frae for about 4 or 5 weeks at the end of last split. And the first time that I actually got to talk to Frae on TeamSpeak was I was watching a scrim where Frae went absolutely massive. So Abyss was like losing across the map, but Frae was like, I think you were like 15-0, right, in this scrim. And I just remember like this point in the game where it was like getting real late, Abyss was losing. You just like dive in, killed like 1, 2, 3, people, and you're getting like towards that pentakill, and you're about to get this pentakill in this scrim, and Pac-Man on Poppy steals the penta with Sunfire Cape. And I don't think he had like any kill participation in this game, and you were like 15-0, and he just steals it with the Sunfire Cape, and I just remember like the tilt.
It was intentional. I didn't care what happened. It was intentional. he did it on purpose.
It was
dude, that was my crowning moment. It was like a 1v5. But I mean, interesting memories.
It was actually like a 1v5. That was an incredible scrim set. I was like,
that's why I entered. Yeah,
pretty good.
That's why I entered in OPL. I decided Pac-Man wronged me, so I had to make them lose some OPL games. It was
that's only
my
fair.
Excuse.
It's only fair. Alrighty, so we're going to be doing the show very focused in on OPL this week. So topic 1 for the week, as usual, is just going to be discussing the previous OPL games. So the first series that we had for the week is Direwolves versus Regicide. So this was a 2-0 for Direwolves. It was a pretty one-sided series, right, guys? Like, I know there was some messy bits from the Direwolves in some of the games, but I felt like it was a pretty one-sided series. Nick, would you agree with this summary?
Yeah, this series is a bit of a David versus Goliath sort of thing. Like Regicide is a weaker team, but in particular they rely on like individual skill to be able to bring them through victories. And so does Direwolves, except they've got like better individual players, so it's just like a very hard stylistic matchup for Regicide. And I thought they had a pretty good showing, especially considering they had some like weird like substitutions. Like in game 1 they had Yele, and I talked to one of Regicide's manager people, and that's actually Curtains. Some people from solo queue may know him. He's just like a solo queue jungler. And then they had Fade, the normal jungler ADC. So Fade was doing like a double, triple role swap there. It wasn't a particularly close game, but game 2 was much closer, and probably a good portion of that was people playing like more of their main roles.
Okay, so in terms of the substitution, like do you think that this really negatively impacted the series for them? I guess, put this question to Frae as well. Or do you think that this was like definitely a 2-0 from Direwolves pretty much no matter what?
It's probably just a 2-0 to be honest. I mean, yeah, General mentioned it. Like they're both. I mean, Regicide, I feel like it takes some games off some lower tier teams, but it's just gonna be based off like scrapping. Like they have decent individual players, but like General said, Direwolves is like 5 incredible individual players, and they have the macro to back it up. So I don't see how. I mean, the first game was unlucky with the roll swaps, but the second game seemed pretty decisive as well. It was slightly closer at the start, but then like once Direwolves decided to stop disrespecting them, they just ended it.
Okay. Actually, in terms of, we mentioned the disrespect. So in that second draft phase, I believe it's the second draft phase, Direwolves picked up, was it like a Cassidon first round? Like a Camille, Nidalee, like incredibly, I guess, could be viewed as being like a really cocky draft, right? Do you think that this is that kind of the disrespect that you're talking about, or do you think that it was disrespecting the play as well?
I was more talking around the second game. I think the first game, like the draft was, like, aside from the Cassidon into Lucian, I don't think their draft was really that disrespectful. But Cassidon into Lucian, like that matchup, like obviously Lucian does counter Cassidon, but it's not like a be all end all sort of thing. Like if Cassidon plays it correctly after like 2 items, he still does completely fine. I was more referencing the fact in the second game they tried to they fought more than they needed to. They could have just ended off a macro, but they chose to play into Regicide's potential win condition and fight them, and that's why there was a couple more kills. But yeah, like second game, I definitely think their playstyle was a lot more disrespectful.
Alrighty. I mean, both of you guys have played mid lane in a competitive environment, right? Like Nick, I know you almost qualified
I'm much
for the
better
OPL.
than Frae though, so
You're
direct
much
this
better.
question
very
to
bad.
me. Yeah.
I'm a good ADC though. You should direct
Yeah.
shit to me.
ADC questions
Oh.
Frae, mid lane questions me, and jungle questions we'll direct them to you, Scott. At least in one trick, gold 5.
I'll throw this one to both of you because I actually don't think Frey is that bad, Nick. I think he was all right.
Alright.
It's an okay player.
All the duck.
So I actually want to ask you guys about the mid lane matchup in the series because Suman played really, really well in the first week against Abyss, right? What did you guys think of the mid lane matchup coming into this? Like you mentioned the Lucian into Cassidon. What do you guys think of the mid lane matchup for these two players? Yeah, like have you guys had experience playing? All right. Sorry about that, guys. We just had a wee technical difficulty. So I was just asking Frey about what he thinks of the mid lane matchup between the players Seoman and Fantix. So take it away again, Frey.
Yeah, I was just saying like I don't think the champion picks really matter too much. It's just like they're both good enough as solo players to hold up their own end. Even if you got like a hard count, well, there aren't that many hard counters in mid lane right now. But even if you were to get a favorable matchup, neither of them would solo die, or not that much. Like 9 times out of 10, it would just be a standard lane, and then it's just up to whether or not you have better teammates. And considering Regicide's game 1, like they had pretty insane, like swapping jungle to AD, like getting a random sub in. Like a lot of the Direwolves just way better macro, and all they play, like they've shown fire to back off Fantix. Like the 2v2 is just gonna be stronger, I think, most of the time. But I wouldn't say Suman's like a worse player than Fantix in terms of micro.
Right. Nick, I guess the same question goes to you. What do you think of the matchup between those two players?
I think it is pretty skewed towards Fantix. I think that at least in game 1, it seemed like Suman wasn't particularly comfortable on the Lucian. Like, I know when I did a little quick scouting on Seaman's main account, he has more, but he hadn't really played Lucian, so maybe it was just a champion I had not a lot of experience into, and particularly the matchup where Fantix undoubtedly had a fair amount of experience, because as soon as you pick Cassidon blind and scrim, people just immediately counter pick it with Lucian, and even in a solo queue, so that was probably played into the game 1 laning phase where it was relatively even, which shouldn't necessarily happen in that lane. However, in like game 1, it was quite interesting actually, because Suman like got the better of Fantix at like level 4, like the flash away, that sort of stuff. However, Fantix got the mid tower like at 9-10 minutes in, seemingly solo. So I do think that was not necessarily coming down to like the 1v1 matchup as much as just like the amount of pressure on the side lanes, like from mid. Like, you can't really trade your lane, or you can't play your lane 1v1 if the rest of your map is losing, because as soon as you're going in for a trade with the enemy mid laner, you're very scared about getting roamed on, so probably that played a part into Suman. But I think that Suman overall is like a pretty strong laning phase player, not like the best, but but certainly not a particularly weak laning phase player. So I think it was mostly just coming down to Suman's comfortability on the champions and the rest of the map that the rest of the pressure on the map that Direwolves had.
All right, so we seem to have like a pretty good summer in this series. That Regicide really strong individual players, but Direwolves like have that same quality, but also have some of the macro play to go with it. So I guess my question to round out, I guess moving on from the series is, how good was this showing from Regicide? Are we gonna see Regicide be competitive with some of the other top teams, which are perhaps not as strong as the Direwolves are this split? I guess I'll throw this one over to you, Frae, first.
I think I feel like a lot of people have the same sort of view on the OPL right now. It's like there's like this top 6 teams who are all like potential gauntlet teams, and then there's like Regicide and TM. Although TM, like I guess we'll talk about it later, I think might have a better chance than most people give them credit for. But Regicide definitely is just like that super skirmish, like, oh, we're all solo queue players, like straight out of solo queue into competitive, like let's just fight like constantly. And I feel like some lower tier teams might fall into their trap and like trade with them and get let them get like early leads, and then they could transition. Like if they get far enough ahead in the early game, I feel like they could just win fights and still take a couple games. I don't know if they're going to take any series because most of the teams are like refined enough to the point where they can like get it together in a best of 3 and not just play their win condition, play macro, and just like beat Regicide. Because like in the meta right now, it doesn't matter how good you are as solo players. If you're down numbers or you're down the players or the items, if you don't have it, you can't just out mechanic someone with half their damage. It just doesn't work. So I'm not seeing Regicide winning any series even, or if they do, it'd be against like maybe TM in a really close set.
I think that Regicide will definitely take single games. I don't think I think that Regicide. I wouldn't be too shocked to see Regicide potentially take out like maybe a slumping Sin or a TM, or like Abyss has a bad series or AV has a bad series. Like I think they can definitely take a series, but I would be surprised to see them actually make the gauntlet. But I think they'll be a competitive team. They'll just be a team that will be playing spoiler, I think. And just because, as Frae said, like they're individually quite solid players, especially their top side. However, the rest of the OPL are quite strong individually as well. However, they just have got better macro play, so they may be able to take like a game or two, but I don't think they'll be able to consistently replicate that in order to give themselves a good enough of a season to make the gauntlet at the end. But I think they'll definitely be playing spoilers for the teams that are wanting to sneak into that 5th and 4th gauntlet spot.
Alrighty. Well, unless anybody else has anything else to say on that series, I think we should move on to the next one. So the second series, which we had this week, was Legacy versus Avant Garde. So this was a 2-1 from Legacy, but Legacy lost all of their bans in the second game due to, I think it was an unauthorized.
They lost their
pause?
3 bans at the first phase, but they got their bans in the second phase.
Oh, okay. So they lost their 3 bans in the first phase, which, yeah. So I think perhaps that's something which we can discuss is should AV have picked up that game, or was that 3 bans a big reason that they lost? But I think the first thing which I wanna focus in on from this series is looking at the Legacy pick ban. So Legacy's pick ban in the series tended to be like they were picking up like the Nunu all 3 games for Carbon, like kind of low damage, like a lot of shielding comps, right? What did you guys think, or what did you think, Nick, of the compositions? And I'll ask Frae afterwards.
Yeah.
That Legacy was pulling out.
I'm not the biggest fan of the shielding comps in general, just because their ability to play from behind is quite minimal. Just like they've got really no damage. So if someone like Series in the game 1 or Gragas got ahead, they're just gonna have a very tough time to actually kill through the front line. However, it is like we saw in that game. It's really strong whilst ahead. We saw in the team fights, like no one from AV could do any damage, so it's like a risky gambit. However, I did think it was quite interesting because AV as a team, they do play quite heavily around the team fights. And so picking the shielding team fighting composition seemed to be a style. I think it was a composition that Legacy had drafted specifically for Avant Garde. because they do draft a lot towards the team fighting, and that's how they usually win their games. So I think what they were doing with that draft was just like, all right, the way we beat AV is through team fighting, so we're just going to pick like this really safe, really easy to execute team fighting comp. That AV probably don't have much experience against. Like a shielding comp, a specific composition would be something that they would unlikely have scrimmed against. So maybe it's just like a little bit of a wild card that Legacy were throwing against them, and it did show that in the team fights in games 1 and 3, AV didn't look as dominant as they usually do in the team fights. So I credit a lot of that to the draft.
All right, and same question for you, Frae.
I mean, I pretty much agree. Like I would say Soulstrike respects Triple quite a bit. I think Triple is a very good mid laner, and all they did was really like neutralize the middle lane matchup and let Lost carry, because I know Lost is like incredibly good. I mean, I think everyone knows, but yeah, like they just play. They pick Karma. They just shield Lost. They got so far ahead. They were never challenged. Like with that game, there was pretty much nothing AV could ever do. Like in both those series. Oh, the 2 games that they won, that they played Karma with. Once they got ahead, it was just so oppressive.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I don't know if it's gonna work against everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Although what I would want to say is, I don't think Ivan is a good champion. Like Carbon this split has just decided he hasn't played really, apart from like one game on Lee Sin, he's just played a lot of Nunu and a lot of Ivan. And I don't really feel like, because Legacy are going to be a team that want to be, they're not expecting to finishing anything less than 3rd. So what their split is aiming towards is finishing in 1st. And I just don't really think that Nunu and Ivan, that sort of champion pool, is going to be good enough when it comes to playing against Outlaws specifically. Because if you're playing a jungle matchup like Nunu and Ivan, that just essentially forfeits all 1v1 pressure. Frae is a jungler that like really likes to play that 1v1 jungle style, so I do think it is really quite risky, but I think it really does suit with Carbon's playstyle. So when Direwolves do play against Legacy, I think it'll be quite interesting to see how that jungle champion and that jungle champion pool matches up.
You see, Nick, I have a theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if this is actually like a incredible tactic from Soulstrikes, right? Where, all the other ADCs in the league are seeing Lost. He's got like the Nunu buffs, he's got like the Karma shields, and they're like, well, I could do that if my team just gave me all these buffs. So what's going to happen is when Legacy plays against Direwolves, Shinfai is going to be stuck on the Nunu, and it's going to be because King, he'll just be complaining like, I can do it, So maybe this is like a major tactic from Legacy.
He knows,
and then Carbon goes back to regular.
all the ADCs are going to get jealous from these like Lost comps, and he's just going to make all the ADCs really tilted that their teams don't play as around them as they do with Lost, and that's why everyone thinks Lost is very good, and they're just going to
exactly.
Yeah, actually, Lost is very subpar ADC. You're right.
Yeah,
now that I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll plop. Imagine like a Frae DC instance. We just plop.
Dude, imagine me with those shields. Think about Hellions 20-0 split fucking 2015, mate. That's the shit. Well, it's 2016. No, I forgot the year we played. 100%. If Protect AD was a thing back then, we would have gone 20-0. I guarantee it.
You would have gone 20-0? All right, there we go. Frae is better than Lost, guys. You hit it here first.
I mean, yeah.
All right. So the second game in the series, AV do actually pick up the win. So, we talk about the composition doing really well from Legacy, but in game 2, AV pick up the win. So AV get a champion, which is considered very strong in this patch, right? Called Zac. And Sybil apparently could play this champion really well. I didn't know he was a Zac player. But
really?
So yeah, what did you guys think of AV picking up the win, and how much do you think Zac had to do with this? Should we do Nick first this time? Do Nick first this time.
I don't think it was solely due to the Zac. I think they played really well around. I think the interesting about AV this split is that series, at least on the Renekton, seems to be like much more of a carry threat than he was in the last split. Like last split, he was just playing essentially only Nautilus and Maokai and Poppy. So him adding quite a strong Renekton to his pool does diversify AV's playstyle, and I think they did play quite well around the Renekton pressure that he had in this not the Renekton, just because he was against the cannon, and you need to really gank towards that lane. So it was good to see that AV were able to execute on it. However, I I do think that the team fights are just so in AV's favor because of the Zac pick. Like, Sybil actually knew how to play Zac. Like, he was Eing in, and then he was using the Q, he was using the ult, he was getting people in the backline. He was executing on the Zac pick really well, and I think that had a really good part in terms of team fights, but I do think that can't discredit. AV did play like a quite a solid game around the Talia pressure and around the Renekton pressure, so I think it was a combination of them playing really well and the Zac pick.
Right. So could they have won this game without the Zac then, do you think? If it was another jungler?
It's hard to say, but it probably would have been a closer game. It's hard to say. Probably, I'd say probably not. I think it just had such a presence in the team fights that allowed AV to close out. However, we would have if they had like an Elisa or something like that, we'd probably been talking about how AV managed to get a very sizable advantage in the early game and how they probably just need to work on transitioning their advantages. Where in this game, they got the early game gold advantage and then just like, all right, team fight them. Zac is just going to make the team fights really easy to execute.
Alrighty. Same question for you, Leon. How important was Zac, and could they have won the game without it?
I mean, Zac, like the whole pick ban phase, I feel like is just so AV skewed in this game. Like there's like Kennen, Cassiopeia, Varus as their carries who are just like all incredibly immobile. Like you think Cassiopeia into Zac is just like, oh, I don't want to fucking like, please no. Like Talia, like Talia walls them off. Your immobile carries have like one escape. It's flash, and then Zac just jumps on their heads and like has 3 swarms of CC. Like after I think it was a couple of micro misplays in the early game, like Carbon fell pretty far behind, and then like from then on, AV played pretty well to force stuff. They just like Talia wall everywhere. Like, the matchup Talia versus Cassiopeia, you can't. It's the same with like Telly versus Orianna. You see that matchup a lot picked in Korea. It's more like Orianna doesn't lose lane to Talia, but like she can't follow when Telly rotates. Like if she tries to follow into the jungle, like you've seen Ryoma do it a couple of times, they get picked because like you walking into a blind Talia who can cross map ulti. They just had a lot more like falling behind early game in that game for Legacy with the mobile carries into Zac into Talia. It's just like unlucky. That's the only word I have for it. But yeah, I mean I can't really. If they didn't have Zac, who knows? That could have been a much easier game. If it's an Elise, like I said, your carries don't get punished nearly as hard like Cassiopeia. If you play front to back, it could be a lot better. But Carbon fall really far behind.
Right. Alrighty. And I guess to round out the series, so something which you guys have mentioned, I think both of you have mentioned this, is how good that you think Triple is, right? As a mid laner, potentially one of the best mid laners in the league. So what did you guys think of the Game 3 draft coming up from Avant? 1-on-1 in the series, they decided to put their big carry on Zed, and I think they picked Rumble as well, right? And they kind of picked into that shield comp from Legacy. What do you think about putting Triple on the Zed Frae? And what do you think about the AV draft in general for Game 3?
When I was watching this, I was like, oh my god, big brain Lucio fucking outsmarts them again. I was like, he's flexed the Karma to mid first game, and then he picks the Kassadin, and they're like, oh no, it's Kassadin mid. It can't be Karma mid, and then they flex Karma top. I mean, Kassadin top. But then I realized that wasn't it. They actually picked like Blitzcrank. AV realized it was Karma mid. And then they were just like, oh, let's just pick Zed into Karma anyways. Like, I'm not too sure what's happening there. Like, honestly, I feel like maybe Triple was just confident with his match. Like, he thought he could split versus Cassidy in late game, or maybe he's confident to play Zed into Karma. Like, I'm not sure why you would play it there. Maybe they tunneled a bit because they already had the Rumble, they had the Zyra, and they were like, oh, we got AP, let's just play an AD middle laner. But like, Karma, I'm pretty sure Cassidy doesn't have too bad of a time splitting versus Zed once he gets out of like early laning, and then like Karma just neutralizes that as well, and that's like kind of what Legacy want, because they just want Triple to not be able to do anything, which they were able to. Like, I think even after they pretty much stomped them in the early game, Triple or AV still managed to get a couple of skirmishes, and Triple got a couple of kills. So I can only imagine what would happen if they didn't actually neutralize him as hard as it did, because Triple's very good on Zed. He used to play a lot into LeBlanc, if I remember correctly. But I'm not too sure why they did it there. It might have just been a bit of tunnel.
Right. Nick?
I think the only person that should be playing Zed is my boy Frae, and even then, just why? Yeah, it's just like there is very specific circumstances where I think Zed is like playable. Like you've got an AP top, they've got like a weak split. Like if they've got like an AP top and they're playing like a split push top laner, like a Kennen or something like that, and you want to just like switch it up, like what Longzhu did with like this Cassiopeia Z thing, like that. Like you remember that they played Cassiopeia into Kennen. Maybe I can't quite remember. I was pretty sure it was Kennen, and
Yeah,
there was
no,
just like the
Zed
idea was like, all right, the Kennen's gonna build MR against the Cassiopeia. We're gonna swap that Z up, and we're gonna kill him. I think that maybe that was the idea from AV, but like if it just like that comp is very hard to execute into a shielding comp. Just like how much Rumble into shielding comps suck. Like the Rumble ult equalizer comes down, you just like mantra E on Karma, and then everyone's like essentially still full health, and Rumble's just like a 0.5 of a champion. Zed into that comp also, like, unless if he can get the split push pressure on, he can't really do a whole lot. Like the laning phase matchup, I don't think is too favorable as well. But I think the real story about this game was just like Blinky just getting hooked like 18,000 times. Like Cupcake had like a goon level Blitzcrank game. It was probably better than a goon level Blitzcrank game, but it was just like it was really crazy. Like the amount of hooks he hit was just so ridiculous. Looked like he was just smurfing, to be honest.
I feel like the draft is a huge part though. Like the fact that like that's what I don't get because Karma into Zed is like at best it's like an average matchup. You can say it's like even, but then like you get the Kassadin to Rumble. You see the Kassadin build. He goes fucking tabulizes Zhonya's. He doesn't build any MR. Like he doesn't need it because his Q just completely negates Rumble. Like Rumble just doesn't do anything. He walks up, tries to trade. Kassadin Qs him and just gets out traded like constantly. And then you got Varus Blitzcrank into Zyra Ashe. Like the whole thing. Like I don't know, man. Zed playing Zed into Nunu, like you can't even move. He just fucking snowballs you. Like you try to dive the back line, Blitzcrank just silences you. Like he just AoE silences you. You don't even need you can't even ult back. The one thing that Zed can do. Like I just felt like they just got completely outdrafted. It's very tragic game.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I mean, if I remember watching this game as well, this was a complete fucking fiesta, right? Like I'm pretty sure the game was like 34 minutes and Legacy had like 34 kills, right?
Yeah,
it was like
a kill a minute. Yeah, it was really entertaining to watch.
And yeah, like you guys have mentioned, like the compositions were really favored to Legacy, and I think as it got later and later, the Karma shield just got bigger and bigger, and yeah, it just kind of snowballed out of control.
I guess the thing with like AV's comp is it's like a mid game spiking comp. However, because of like the early game advantage that they Legacy got in the early game advantage they got, just sort of made it so that AV's mid game spike meant nothing, and then Legacy could just like theoretically they could just keep scaling to the late game, and like Zed into the late game, Rumble in the late game, Lee Sin in the late game is just like a bit of a meme versus like Kassadin. I don't even want to say it, but Nunu in the late game disgusts me. And then like obviously Karma with more carry orientated top laner is quite strong in the late game, so I think that was also a pretty big part of it. Maybe the AV were able to execute if it was more even in the early game.
Alrighty. Does either of you have anything else you want to say on the series, or should we move on to the next one?
Alrighty. Too smart.
Soul Strike's too smart?
Yeah, it's just once again.
All right. So Chiefs versus Abyss Esports. Oh man, I really wanna skip this series. That was rough. That was so rough. But so Chiefs beat Abyss in a 2-0. So first game, Chiefs kind of rolled Abyss very hard. Like they won the mid jungle matchup really hard in the early game, right?
One top lane, one bot lane.
Yep, they won top lane too. I think Swiper got a solo kill.
He did.
Onto Pabu, and yeah, bot lane as well. Like Rage was down a lot of CS. So, I think in terms of perhaps I can open up the first game to analysis, but it seemed like a pretty decisive first game, right? Like, do you guys think that there's, I guess, anything else to say on that one, or? Seb
looked really like lost in game one. Not like the good kind of lost the ADC, kind of like he didn't really know what the hell was going on. It seemed like all of his lanes, it was like all of his lanes were losing and he was getting invaded on, and he was just sort of like trying to play the jungle matchup, not like respecting, like he just died level 4 to 5 because of the Lulu roam. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that was communicated, but that was just like he's just fighting spooks, and then he's just like, damn, Lulu came. Oh, I guess I got unlucky. That was just like that sort of stuff. And I remember watching that, and Luch was literally farming his minions as Seb was fighting. Seb continued fighting and retreating, and Luch was still farming minions. It just seemed like, at least in mid jungle and bot, there was just like a complete breakdown in communication when it came to the early laning phase. And
I mean, Luch was also dead, right? Like at
No.
this, oh, not dead, sorry, but like on 0 health,
he was
right?
it was
very
like
low.
3. It was, I don't know. I think he probably could have lent him an E or something, like an EW sort of. But it looked very strange. It was just like, I mean, knowing Luch, oftentimes if he's not rotating down, it's not because he's just outthought it. Like, oh, there's no way. He's probably not even aware the fight is happening. So, like,
I don't know about, yeah, maybe it wasn't. But I mean, you see Spooks invading, you're like, oh, I'm gonna fight him, and then Lulu flash shields like out of nowhere. You're a
Yeah.
bit tilted. I mean, tiny
Yeah.
bit. But I mean, yeah.
then
like,
your top laner dies.
Luch was losing.
Then your top
Like,
laner dies. Yeah, and then Raid misses the arrow bot. It's just like a next game sort of situation.
It's kind of. I mean, if you think like. They should have known though. Like Seb shouldn't have fought there. Like
Yeah,
if he just thinks about it, because like Luch was getting pushed in, that's the matchup. Bot is
Mhm.
going to get pushed in, that's the matchup. Like it's just I don't know if it's just a communication breakdown. Maybe like he was just. I mean, you gotta you think about it. You're like, why is Spooks behind my blue buff? Like I should be able to fight this, but
Yeah.
you know, it just wasn't. Like you just have to give that up sometimes. I don't think he was really contesting anything. It was just a 1v1.
Yeah. I just
Hmm.
think that like Abyss aren't good enough as a team at the moment to be able to play specifically against like Chase Legacy and Diables when they've got like that much amount of pressure coming onto them. It was just like very, very difficult for them to be able to make any plays. And Carbon was really emphasizing this on the cast, how like it was really pressured for Abyss to make a play to be able to get out of the laning phases and break open the map. However, maybe they were like really nervous or like that, but it was just like they were flubbing the execution a lot. Like, you know, remember that so it's like, imagine the goalpost is here, right? Goalpost 1 is the Lulu. Goalpost 2 is Caitlyn. Julian shot his arrow straight in the middle. He got a goal, but unfortunately he's not playing soccer anymore. He's playing League of Legends, and he needed to hit the post with the arrow. So they made
Yeah.
That was pretty. That was like a very bad arrow. To be honest.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate.
And you just like you make enough of those like micro mistakes against Chiefs when you need to be able to hit the execution, you're just gonna lose the game very easily. So that was sort of like what happened.
I think the comp from the Chiefs as well, though, right? Like,
Yeah,
I guess it's something of note because that comp snowballed really well, right? Like Caitlyn, if she gets ahead, you know, very oppressive. She sets up the sieges. Like I think you mentioned before about Talia. You know, if you're having to try and follow Talia around the map, especially if she's ahead, it's a nightmare.
This is the same concept. Like if you watch the game, pretty much, like I don't know, Seb always function. A lot of junglers function way better if they're just like able to do what they want. But the comp that Chiefs had was like, obviously there were micro errors, but the minute they fell behind, this is the same thing as the AV game. Like, they were forced to make a play bot because Kayla was going to take tower just naturally, and that ended up with Seb dying and them taking tower. And then they rotated Kaylin topside, and then Seb, they were taking top tower naturally again with the extra gold they had, and the not solo kill, the Seb died early, remember, the Lulu flash kill. So they were behind already on all three members on topside, but they had to fight them again, or at least Seb chose to fight them again in a 3v3. They were behind, they die there, they lose tower, like it just snowball completely. Like from then on, Tally has free roam as well in mid lane because he had to push. Like it was just a really clean game from Chase, to be honest. I don't know if like after that bot lane, top lane deaths, there's nothing Abyss could really do to get back in that game. Everything just seemed kind of really lost. Like that desperate flank from Parbu at the end where he like ulties 3 people. Like he TPs the middle of mid lane as they're hitting inhib tower and he like runs all the way and like gets a ulti on 3 people, but Luch is already like dead in the back line. It's just after that there's not much to do.
I guess there was just a story with this game, which is like Chiefs had pressure on all 3 lanes. They were able to execute to close out the game, and hypothetically, if we had a game where Abyss had 3 winning lanes, even a solo kill in the mid lane level 1, and we can discuss obviously if Abyss were able to execute and be able to close out the game, because Chiefs made it look very easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, if there is one thing that I would if there was one thing that I would want to say on that in that first game though is, you mentioned like did you say flubbered? Somebody said flubbered execution, I
That's
think.
probably me. I love that
And
word.
Love it.
and
Yeah.
I think if there is
Love it.
if there is one player which I think did actually, do a little bit to get game into the game, I think Pabu did do his best, right? Like there was like that thing around mid lane where he's just roaming down on Jarvan, and I think they picked up a few kills.
Yeah.
In the mid lane, and I think he was probably the one player on the team which was looking to get some stuff done from behind. So you mentioned then that imagine if Abyss had all 3 winning lanes, and we're in a similar position as Chiefs in game 1. So believe it or not, Nick, this actually happened
Wait,
in
really?
game number 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet. So
Live.
Chiefs,
So,
so Abyss cleanly closed it out, and we got to discuss the game 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the end of the Chiefs versus Abyss series.
Nice.
Ended as a 1-1. So
Wait a second.
Abyss pick up a really good draft in game number 2. They have 3 winning lanes, and a lot of they were shoving in, and they were able to pick up the outer turret, or like they kind of had the pressure on taking the outer turret first. But they don't win this game. I think Luch got a solo kill at 2 minutes into the game. There's so much pressure from the Abyss team.
Yeah.
What went wrong? Who wants to go first? Should I give it to Nick?
Sure thing, mate. Yeah. So, Luch got the level 1 kill on onto Swiffer on the LeBlanc, and at that point, like, the game really, or at least the early game, then should be like completely over. Like mid pressure is so important to have, that because the only real contested lane for Chiefs was going to be that mid lane. The fact that Swiffer died level 1 just sort of means that Abyss has 3 winning lanes, and they did. And then when they had the 3 winning lanes, like they made this like they were winning their lanes. They had like a decent gold advantages from like natural stuff. And then they decided to do this like really weird bot lane play where they went Luch left his lane, rotated bot lane. He was going to get that first blood bot lane tier 1, do the correct thing. However, they like overstayed on the bot lane. Like I'm pretty sure they could have just like taken the bot tower, or at least taken like all of the chunk, rotate back to mid, defend it, and just keep it going. However, Abyss just seemed like really panicked, I guess, and they really wanted. It just looked like that. They looked really panicked. They wanted to end the game, like I guess a bit sooner than they could have, and they decided to do this like bot lane 2 towers for mid lane 1, and crucially, Chiefs got the Rift Herald. And I think that trade in isolation isn't particularly good, especially because Abyss had all of the options in the early game. Like there isn't like they don't need to trade anything in the early game. They should realistically be able to take all 3 outer towers, as well as both neutral objectives, without Chiefs taking a single one. And the fact that they traded the mid lane tower as well as the Rift Herald, which is essentially a tower in itself, so 2 towers for 2, when they had 3 winning lanes, it's just not good enough from a team.
Spooks fucked up that Rift
Yeah,
Herald.
and
as well,
Spooks
right?
fucked up that Rift Herald.
Like
Like he fucking used he was like he said on Twitter like he was accidentally trying to put a trinket down. He didn't really say Rift Herald, then it just like does nothing. But realistically, from like a macros perspective, that was a trade by Chiefs when they were like fucked. They were screwed. And it wasn't like it wasn't a forced error as well. I guess that's the main issue I have with it. It wasn't a forced error. It was just something that Abyss opted into, and it wasn't the correct thing to do. Because Scott, what's the most important tower in the game? You got 1 in 3 chance.
I got a 1 in 3 chance.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah. Just to provide a bit of context for anybody who doesn't, I guess, understand like macro very well in League of Legends, the mid tower is the most important tower in the game because it gives you control over. Like, pretty much it gives you control over the map, right? Because the enemy team can't push the mid wave up in order to get control over the jungle, right? So that's the reason why mid lane is so important. Because in competitive play, if you want to make a play, most of the time you have your mid laner shove in, and then you rotate him with your jungler to a side of the map to make a play, right? So Abyss losing mid lane tower, like I honestly think like even if you take 2 towers bottom for 1 tower mid, I think that losing your mid lane tower is just not worth that trade, right? Like I would rather lose 2 towers and keep my mid lane than I would take the 1. Yeah. I guess I can throw a similar, I guess the same question is why did Abyss lose this game to you, Frae?
I feel like it's actually just not being proactive. Like they had the advantages, but they just didn't translate. Like they picked Renekton right into Rumble, which is a good matchup, right, for a dive if you want to dive Rumble, which you should want to do, because Rumble is very weak to that. But they ended up sort of split. Like they had the pressure to do whatever they wanted. They had the pressure to choose what side of the map they wanted to play on, and they chose to split it to the bot side. And I feel like that's just Seb's being proactive or not. Like he just decided to play bot side of the map and take their bot side jungle and his bot side jungle for like I think 2 times before they started making that bot play. Whereas if they used that mid pressure and Renekton's pressure, they could have easily like rotated. They could have easily started playing top side instead. But I think they just weren't proactive enough. So like a lot of Abyss players, from at least my experience with them, is they sort of more opportunistic. They're like, if I see an opportunity to make a play, I'll do it, rather than being the player who sort of provides these opportunities. Like I think Parbu is good at doing that. But other than that, like the carries like Raid and Lucian, they're more like they're better at collapsing on that the opportunities that are given to them. Like that ball lane dive, like they didn't dive it. They just went for the ball lane tower. Like it's just really bad trade. They like if worst case, if Chiefs actually got that Herald usage off, they could have taken like 2 towers trade. Although Chiefs did play really well. Like the minute they saw that the dive was happening bot lane, Chiefs just like Tom ulted mid, gets mid tower, and then gets that tempo, takes Herald, even though Herald wasn't really used for anything. But I think like they just let Rumble free farm. Rumble was full same CS as Renekton the whole time when they had the aggressive lanes and the winning lanes, when they could have chose to send Seb topside and play around that topside matchup with their 3v3. They just didn't want to make that. Like, maybe didn't go through their mind. They didn't have the win condition like really thought out. But they sort of just went with the flow with whatever Chiefs wanted them to do, and they just played bot side. They just kept staying bot side. Kha'Zix is able to free farm top side as he wanted, and there's no pressure on Rumble. The game just, like I feel like Abyss should have closed that out so easy.
Yeah.
Like he was so close to them winning still, even after their mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. Like feels bad to watch.
Like after the map was after the towers were broken, like a few outer towers were down. Like, Chiefs started to build control with, like, the 1-through-1, and then Chiefs made this, like, it was a very risky call. I don't necessarily disagree with it as much, but, the Baron where Seb stole it, like, that whole play, I think, was just a little bit rushed by Chiefs. I think they could have definitely consolidated the 1-3-1 pressure a little bit more in order to leverage their Baron control, where that, I think they just overrushed it a bit. Abyss, like, Seb came in, stole the Baron, and from that point, like, I think the whole 30 minutes onwards is a lot less interesting to discuss than pre-30, because it should have been done by pre-30. But, like, post-30, pretty much Parbu was doing, I guess, some things that people, like, quite criticize him quite heavily for, which is fair enough, is, him playing too over-aggressive in the side lane. He got called out numerous times in the side lane. There was the base calls where Abyss probably should have backed off and reset it further, but it just seemed like the only thing that's really concise throughout the entire thing was that it seemed that Abyss were really panicked and seemed really, really pressured. They didn't seem like they have a cool head, and it translated in their plays. Like, Parbu shouldn't be splitting by himself in those sort of situations when he doesn't have any idea of when everyone else is. They shouldn't be ending in those situations when it's such a tight end and they've got advantage. It just seemed like Abyss in general were like very panicked, and probably their voice comes very cluttered when people yelling, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like they had absolutely no real idea on how to close that game. Like Frae mentioned where they should have gone topside. Like for me, looking at that draft, like I personally would have looked for that Rumble dive too. As soon as Syndrome hits level 6, you get the pressure, and you just go up towards the top side. Because I mean, Renekton was not being pressured up by the Rumble. Syndra has an absolute ton of pressure, and if you go top and you take the top tower, kill Rumble, and grab the Rift Herald, like mid tower's free as well, because LeBlanc doesn't have the easiest time getting rid of the Rift Herald either, right? Like it just seemed like even looking at the pick ban, it seemed really obvious that was the way to play. And on the other side of the map, Tom Kench and Xayah, right? Really hard to dive those two. Like there's so much Tom can eat the Xayah, like the Xayah ulti. Like it's I don't know, it just seemed like a really obvious thing, and they didn't really know how to close out the game. Yeah, and not to sound too critical on them. It's just kind of have a relatively close relationship with the team. So, yeah, I guess I pay a lot more attention to their games, right? Alrighty. In terms of Abyss panicking, do you think that, because they almost killed the Nexus, right, on that final game push? Do you think that if they just slowed out the game again and just looked to take out the other inhibs that they could have won, or do you think that this was like a scaling thing for the Chiefs?
No, it was 100%. It wasn't a scaling issue. It was just they got aced in the team fight. They brought it back and just like in the late game, it just seemed like as I said, like Abyss just kept randomly dying in the mid to late game, which caused Chiefs to be able to get more pressure on the map, and eventually all that pressure ended in like them getting the Elder Dragon, and then like Raze just was playing so well in the team fights. I think that was really the thing that brought it home from Chiefs. Like Chiefs were, I guess they weren't necessarily like unforced errors, but like Abyss were making errors partly due to Chiefs' pressure on the map, but it was really Raze's team fighting prowess on the Xayah that really brought it home. Like if Chiefs didn't win the team fights, they wouldn't have won this game, and they shouldn't have really won the team fights if it wasn't for Raze just playing exceptionally well in the team fights, especially that top lane where he just like ults in, flash, rakes in everything, and he just does an absolute metric, a lot of damage. Just a very, very good game from Raze particularly, and it's good to see that Raze is getting the form that gave him a lot of hype when he first joined the Chiefs, when he was on Diables. He seems to be re-entering that form that he had at that time.
All right. Anything final for you on the series, Frae?
Well, just regarding the point you guys were talking about before, like I think it's just it's like a lot of people don't understand I guess it's sort of nerves in a sense, because when you're on the stage and you're thinking, oh, we can end the game right here, or we can back off and play safely and fight them again. I think Abyss were strong enough to just like back off, take the advantages and fight them, but there's just this perceived notion of like, oh, we're gonna get outscaled, like because the fights were really rough. I feel like for Abyss, and they're all pretty close, so they just got a bit too like antsy, and also I feel like Raid might have built a bit too defensive, just in my opinion. I think he could have gone. He was like probably the sole damage dealer in the late game for his team, right? Like Seb and Pabu as Renekton, Lee Sin, like Lee Sin especially is not going to do anything. Like late game into Tahm Kench, you're not kicking anyone, right? All you're doing is just being a meat shield for Raid and hoping that him and Luch can carry. And I don't know if going into GA more was the best build. He probably needed. I mean, I don't play AD, but he probably needed at least the Last Whisper, something to get through those Zhonya's. But yeah, they just tried to end too quickly, coupled with the early game mistakes. It was a sad game.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point on Red playing really defensively, especially because he was like a lot of the times the sole carry left up in the team fights. Lucha's going down quite early in some of those fights.
I just remember. Sorry.
Oh no, you go.
I just remember when Raid like flashed over the wall, came back to try and hold the Nexus when they TP. They double TP'd in to try and end. Well, they did end, and Raid like auto attacks Rumble for like 10 damage. And that was when I was like, oh, they can't defend this anymore. Like, it's like I don't know. I feel like he needed to just go all out. Like, there's no point in surviving. If you're Jin and you get GA popped, you're dead. Like, team already lost. If you get GA popped, and more as well. Like, I think you just go straight damage. I can't really blame him for it. They had Rumble, they had LeBlanc, but you have to just take it. You have to take the risk sometimes. You got to hard carry that game. It's unfortunate.
Alrighty. So I guess we'll move on to the final series of the week. So Sin versus Tainted Minds. So I think I predicted a 2-0 from Sin coming into the series, right?
Yes.
Can't actually remember, but I thought it was going to be relatively one-sided to Sin.
Yeah.
And then the first game happened, and you go into pick ban. Yeah, well, you go into pick ban, and it's like, oh, Sin got Zac. All right, well, GG, well played, game 2. And yeah, Only and TM go really hard early and close out this game very fast. And then, obviously the other 2 games happen, Sin pick up the 2-1. But yeah, I guess what does that first game and I guess the series mean for TM? Is TM actually better than we expected? I guess I'll hit Frae with this one first.
Like I said, when we said before about the 2 bottom teams, and then there's like the 6 tiers, the teams that could potentially make Gauntlet. Like, I think TM definitely proved that they're better than a lot of people thought. but they still seem like that Regicide sort of team where it's like, hey, we have the players that can make the plays. We know Only is good, right? Like, no one ever doubted Only being a good player. Shock's high rank, solo queue, Praetor's a good player. They have a good top side. Like they can just if Only just like gets these ganks off in the early game, he can just run off of the game, and he's got enough players. He's got like good enough talent behind him to like facilitate that. But I don't know if he doesn't get these. I feel like everything went his way that game, like everything. It's not that he didn't play well. It's not like he didn't path correctly. It's just a lot of things kind of fell into place, and Sin maybe disrespected a bit, gave him a few free kills. And at this level of play, like it doesn't matter how good you are if you're down 10 kills, you're just gonna lose fights. Like, yeah, like I'm not sure if Sin. I think that's just a bad showing from Sin more than anything. Like, not to take that much credit away from TM, but Only kind of just got the ball rolling a bit too fast for Sin to stop in the early game.
Nick?
Yeah, I think a big thing about it was just like Juice is usually like a very proactive player in the early and like level 2 onwards, really. Like he's always in the river, he's always just like running in and trying to fight the enemy jungle, and through fighting the enemy jungle he's tracking the enemy jungler. However, on the Zac pick, you have to be playing a lot more passive in the early game. Like you can't just run into Lee Sin and say what up. You're just gonna get destroyed and you're probably gonna die. So I think that was probably like a big reason why TM, not TM, why Sin seemed so like bad at tracking the enemy jungle was because they were like the laners just played way too over aggressive. Dokla, especially, and Rhymer as well. They were just like playing way too aggressive without anything from Juice. And it's just like Juice will at level 5, and that was the point where you're just like, alright guys, I can do something on Zac. And it was like everyone was like, oh, by the way, like Top's dead. Like everyone had just died at that point. It was just like really, really unfortunate for Juice. However, like there was like, I remember there was one specific fight in the bot lane. Like there's like the bread and butter Zac combo is like E in. Generally you miss the E because you don't need to really hit it. You Q someone, you auto attack another, you slap them together, you ult. Like, Juice went in for the E, went in for the Q, and he went in for the ult, and he just, like, seemed to flub his mechanics on the ult, and then it just didn't do anything. And if you're gonna pick the Zac, you need to be able to execute on that specific play. Like, your jungler needs to be able to do that, else you just can't play Zac. Like, it's just that simple. Like, you saw the weaknesses of Zac when it comes to not being able to track the enemy jungler in the early game, but not the team fight strength of the Zac, because it seemed that Juice, at least this week, at least this game, wasn't comfortable on executing on the mechanics of Zac.
Right. Do you think that this could be, I guess, something which other teams will go into other series and just not ban away the Zac from Juice?
Yeah,
could that be like quite detrimental for the Sin drop?
especially because Sin are playing against Avant Garde. Like we saw that Sybil played like a really, really good Zac. You may just see some blue side bans from yeah. I'm really interested. I'm not 100% sure. Like I'm not in either of the camps, so. Maybe it'd be something that they should definitely discuss through Avant-Garde, seeing like, oh, do we leave open the Zac? And it would be interesting to see if Sin, if they scrim with it more, or this is side Jews, what it's going to put you on, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, Elise, maybe even Ivan.
Maybe Ivan.
Or
Sin
Nunu.
banned Zac game 3, right? Blue side.
Oh yeah, they did.
They
Yeah,
did.
so that might actually be,
maybe that was like I'm not sure. Like maybe that was just like. There's a difference between game 3 and having like the week of prep. The week of prep you can discuss it more as the Jews can get more Zac games in, and maybe they'll have a different prioritization on Zac next week.
Yeah, like I'm sure they're gonna. If Zac stays the way he does, there's no way Juice doesn't like
Spoiler,
learn it.
he
Like,
has. He's still busted.
yeah, I'm saying if he stays the way he is right now.
Yeah.
If Zac doesn't get changed, then like I'm sure Sin will pick it up.
Mhm.
But like the game 1, like after Only got that early game so like far ahead with Jarvan, Orianna into Rumble, Syndra, Ashe, like no one's getting out. you're just gonna get like one hit by everything. They just got too far ahead.
Yeah, I mean, actually, in terms of the Zac though, like it is actually going to be quite hard to get practice on it, right? Like a lot of teams don't want you playing Zac because they're not going to draft against it, like scrim partners, right? Because are there any other? Yeah, like are there any?
You never see it
in solo queue as well, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially with 10
there we go.
bans.
It's banned twice every game, I guarantee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's permabanned in gold, so
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Yeah,
perfect.
like it may be really difficult for him to get that experience. Maybe they'll have to look for a scrim partner who be maybe the team which is looking to play Regicide
Imagine if
potentially.
Sin had an academy team they could scrim. And
It's practice pool.
I mean, Sin do have an
Oh,
academy
that's
team,
true.
so they may be
That's
doing
true.
that. It's possible. I'm not.
I don't know if you need too much practice on Zac. Like,
It just seemed that the Juice very clearly wasn't
Yeah.
practiced on the champion. Like you need that E into R auto attack combo. That's like it's something you get down after like 3 to 5 games, and maybe Juice just didn't have enough games on it.
Well, and
I'm
it's
sure
more the
it's fine.
team as well, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the team as well didn't seem to know it because like Juves is really good when he's playing things like the Elise, when he's playing things like the like I guess from previous splits, maybe not so relevant now, like the Rek'Sai. He gets out of the gates early. Level 3 looks to gank, level 4 looks to gank, and he's just ganking everywhere and getting these incredibly aggressive lanes ahead, right? So maybe it's not even so much Juves that needs to learn how to play Zac. Maybe it's more that the team needs to play around the fact that Zac doesn't really do a whole lot of his first clear. Which may be something that they're not used to, because I mean they were still playing really aggressive in their lanes, right?
Yeah.
And only kind of just walked everywhere and was like, "Oh, kill here, thank you very
Yeah.
much."
It's the classic Lee Sin, classic Lee Sin game.
Classic only
Classic
Lee Sin
Lee Sin.
game.
Well, he's got like a 46% win rate. I don't know about. It's the same
that's
as me.
true.
I'm either 10-0 on Lee Sin or I'm fucking 0-10. So.
But when it came to the other games in the series, it was like pretty scrappy as well. But it seemed like scrappy is just like the way that Sin usually plays. I guess the interesting thing is Dockler. I think this series shows that Dockler, at least in the early Spartan split, because Flares wasn't as dominant in the early stages, but if he doesn't improve, he's not as dominant as a force in the top lane as Flares was. So it means that probably Sin are going to have to shift more of their priority towards. I think it's probably going to be towards Ryoma, and Ryoma was playing really, really well. Like his Talia, I think he probably is the best Talia in O's, right? I think that he's just got very, very strong Talia. He's seems to be very able to execute on the map rotating. His mechanics seem very clean on it, and it seems like at this point, like he just played so well on Talia that maybe it should be a consideration in the ban phase, or at least being picked away, because it just seems to suit the way that Sin played, just like playing a lot around fighting, around the early pressure. So I think that the other 2 games there was a lot to do with Rome is just like doing a lot of work on the Talia to shut down the early plays that team were making in game 1 that propelled them ahead.
All right, would you, I guess, agree with that opinion on why Sin was able to pick them up, or pick up the second and third game, Frae?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Talia's really suits Sin's playstyle because they pretty much just want to like fight all. They play scrappy sort of game, but it's more calculated than other teams, I would say. And Talia just like enables you to get to fights like super quick. And Ryoma's one of those players who's like, he's not. I wouldn't say he's consistent, but he can like hard carry. Like he wouldn't like straight up feed. He might like do a bit poorly some games. But then he'll have games where he just like completely pops off. And that's something like that Sin really need now that Flares isn't there anymore. Like I haven't seen too much of the Dockler, but it doesn't seem like he's going to have the same carry potential unless he's on champions like Fiora. And Fiora's sort of a different carry style. She's more of a like I'm going to 1v3 top lane sort of carry, not like team fighting. But yeah, like they should. I feel like Talia is a good ban if you against Sin.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. Yeah, I mean Sin does play like people say, oh, Sin just plays really scrappy. I just call him Skin. Sin just plays really scrappy, and they look to fight early and get skirmishes, and if those skirmishes go well, they win. But then you look at the gauntlet that they played last split, and then you look at like the games which have gone well for them this split, and every game where it gets like really scrappy, they seem to win it, right? And I guess that there kind of has to be some I guess element of it being good play, maybe for the Sin play style, because it definitely does go well when it goes well, right? And when they have the tools in order to execute on it. I also think that in terms of closing out, if Sin does build advantages, they seem to have a bit of easier time closing it out than I guess the other teams in the same category, right? Like Abyss and AV do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess should we move on to the predictions section, or do you guys have anything else you want to say about the Sin versus TM series?
I think that Low and T-Gun have been playing like they've been getting like no resources whatsoever, like only just playing really heavily topside. And I think that Low has played pretty well considering the amount of pressure he's been getting. Like just playing ADC when you're behind, he's been playing like a lot better than I'd expect. Like a rookie to the OPL and someone that not a lot of people were hyped about. So I think I do give credit to TM's bottom lane to be able to hold on in a position where they're not set up for success whatsoever.
Frae, anything you want to say, or
Anything to your favorite jungler?
anything to your favorite jungler? No bias there, right?
I actually messaged him after that, during the first game. I was like, don't win too hard today. I want Sin to make Gauntlet. And then he says, haha, and then loses the next 2 games. So I'm not saying I match fixed it, but
You match fixed it?
let's take that with I expect some payment from Juice in the following days.
All right. So this whole analysis just has to, we just throw it out the window. The only reason
Throw out the
that Sin
window.
won
Only would have hard carried games 2 and 3 as well if I didn't message him about it. I wanted the Cinderella story, man. I need it.
See, you're going to be getting tweets from the Sin players now that are just going to be clipping this tweet, and it's going to be retweeted and sent everywhere.
You're welcome.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Alrighty. So there is one thing which we need to do before predictions. So MVP for the week. Who would I go with?
I had Raze as my MVP of the week. I think that his, particularly his game in game 2, but as well as his performance in game 1, he was just like a very consistent threat for Direwolves. For Chiefs. Like he's just putting out a lot of damage. And he was just playing like really well in the team fights, and I think he was definitely the individual micro thing that led Chiefs, particularly in that game 2 victory. Like, without his really standout performance, I think that it would have been a 3-game series. I think Chiefs would have still won that 3-game series after which. And that's what I predicted 2-1. But I think that Chiefs would have still won that series, but I think it would have been like a 2-1. And I think that Raze was definitely extremely valuable to Chiefs being able to pick up the 3 points there.
Alrighty, Frae, do you have an MVP, or do you need some more time?
There's a lot of like, I guess Lost. I feel like he doesn't really play too many flashy plays, but he's just like so solid on Legacy, like as a backbone. He just plays so solid every single game. But he's not my MVP. Only is still my MVP, unfortunately.
Only's your MVP?
That's it, yeah, dude. The one game, that's all I need. Game 1.
Only Frae just looks at the nameplates and it's like, oh, Only. Alright, he's my MVP.
Yeah. No, I was like, wait, who played this week? And then I saw Only, and I'm like, okay. I didn't even need to look at the scores.
He did have an exceptional week, right? Even, I guess, kind of ignoring the middle game.
He played well, even like regardless of the losses. I feel like Only still showed up.
Yeah, particularly in that game 3 as well. Like I felt like he was doing all right. So I can understand that. It's no bias there.
There's no bias whatsoever. Full reason, all logical right here, rationale.
All right, well, I'm gonna lock in Lost with a wee special shout out to Nunu and to Carbon and Claire, right, for playing the supportive champions, which enabled him. But no, I think he played very well in that series. You know,
wait, so you're saying I'm MVP? I'm MVP in 2016, right? For all split 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Like if I had got that.
Oh, I mean, if Lost is MVP and you're
I'm
better
MVP,
than Lost,
by extension, I'm pretty much MVP for every ADC game I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, I mean, MVP is like the player on their team which is like contributing the most to their victories, right? Like, I mean, obviously you can look at teams like Direwolves, but I feel like
no victories.
It's really hard on Direwolves, like to pick an MVP on Direwolves because they're like winning everywhere. So yeah. And I guess
the whole team. I mean, yeah, like I feel like Direwolves probably should have got someone on their team should have got MVP, but they just played like really well cohesively. So it's just like, I guess Direwolves, but they're getting rank 1 anyway. So let's give MVP to someone else.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those teams perhaps picking up victory. Maybe if TM didn't have Only, maybe they go 0-2. Maybe if they had me as their jungler, they would have.
Go
They would
They
have
2-0.
would
gone over.
definitely go 2-0. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, what? Don't talk yourself down, Smart.
Yeah,
Oh,
what the
thanks,
hell
Sin.
is that?
All right. In terms of general OPL rankings, I guess are there any teams which you guys would, want to say anything about? Like, I guess we could kind of break it down into those categories, right? Like the top three, like the Legacy Chiefs, Direwolves. Is there anything like changing there? Or in like that second category down with Abyss, AV, Sin. Are there any like general comments that you guys would like to make? Because I mean, for me, I'd like to say that I think that Abyss is probably looking to finish like with the current level of play below.
Below AV for sure.
Yeah, if they can't clean up that
Yeah.
play, right? If they can't learn their win
With
conditions,
potential. So much
it is
potential.
potential though.
Yeah.
Their roster's so good.
It's just like that's the only interesting part right now. It's just like between Avant, Sin, and Abyss. I think. I feel like TM still got a tiny bit of way. Like I feel like they could squeeze in, but they still got a ways to go. Like right now, it's just right now. If Abyss play the way they still play, like next week, then it's just gonna be between Avant and Sin, and then obviously Chiefs, Legacy, Direwolves top. Abyss, so much potential, so much.
No, I think
That
that
roster is so good.
Abyss has like is performance obviously it's perform like playing better than the split than the other the Abyss previously, and Sin seemed to be performing worse. So it'll be interesting to see when Abyss and Sin play, who will be able to edge it out, because I think it will be a close series. It'll be interesting to see who wins that. But I think that at the moment it's like Darwas in their tier of their own. Legacy, Chiefs are pretty even. Then as AV, then Abyss and Sin are pretty even, and then below that, TM and Regicide are pretty even. So when those close series match up, we'll be have more data on how those two teams interact. Particularly the Abyss versus Sin is going to be very interesting when it comes to that last gauntlet spot.
When's that game?
Not next week. I know that one.
I think it's in week. Is it week 7? No.
That's ages. I want to see that
Can't be
now.
week 7. Week 7.
Oh, it's week 4 actually. It's so in 2 weeks
okay.
time.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. That's good.
That'd be interesting. Give the team some time to get refine their play.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
The Rift rival break will be then as well, right?
Yes, it will be. So it'll be after the Rift Rival break. So Sim will have been away internationally.
Yeah.
So potentially some advantage for Sin coming out of the. I don't know. I guess we'll have to. Or disadvantage, yeah. Depend how they do, but get some experience against international competition. Oh man, you get to see. Wait, do we get to see Juice? This is Levi. I think we do.
Is Levi still with Gigabyte Marines?
I think so.
Yeah, it was Stark who left.
Yeah, I mean that must be some pretty insane practice, right? Against
what if
Levi?
Juice stomps Levi, then gets recruited to Gigabyte Marines, and then Levi comes back to Oath.
and Sin gets stuck with Levi.
Yeah, what a shit fest.
Could happen.
That's a very real possibility.
Yeah. Alrighty. So should we do some predictions for week 3? So our first matchup for week 3 is Sin versus Avant Garde. I've got a real clear idea on which this one's going to be. I'm gonna go AV 2-1. I think AV is just pretty similar level teams, but I just think that Sin is they were really closely matched last split, and I think that Sin is like Nick said, kind of degraded a little bit in quality because the loss of their top laner, not as good as the new one. And I think they'll edge up, but I think they'll pick up the game. And yeah, what do you think, Frae? What's your prediction?
AV 2-1. Yeah. This week's games are pretty set in stone. I would say AV versus Sin, it could be interesting, but I think AV just playing way better right now. And if they can't shut down Triple, I feel like he's still a better player than Ryan. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think what makes this series a bit interesting is seeing how the teams interact when it comes to the Zac pick, because Sybil showed that he was very proficient on the Zac, and Juve showed the opposite. So I think that will give AV a bit of a significant edge in the pick and ban phase, assuming that Juve doesn't pick up his performance on the Zac and the team learns how to play around this more scaling jungler. So I think it will be a 2-1 towards Avant-Garde. I think that Sin just plays a really, really like scrappy playstyle, and they're pretty much always going to pick up one game versus and like a team that's middle of the pack.
Alrighty. Alright, so we're all pretty much agreed on that one. Well, hopefully we'll have some more controversial. Actually, no, I don't think we have any controversial matchups. So, Chiefs versus Regicide. Nick, I guess I'll let you go first on this one.
2-1.
I think it'll be Chiefs 2-0. Me, yeah, I just think probably it might just look like a repeat of the Abyss series where Chiefs like one game to get lane advantages, they stomp, Regicide get lane advantages in another game and then not able to close out. I think, but I do think that Chiefs are just gonna 2-0, and it's more like Chiefs are looking to make a statement in this sort of game, like how cleanly they can beat Regicide.
Frae?
Chiefs 2-0. I don't know if there's much argument there with. Yeah, it's just I can't see Regicide really taking a game with them. They're too clean right now. Like the way they play the game is very, very methodical, and as long as they don't try to skirmish, like I feel like even Direwolves versus Regicide, you could say like maybe Regicide take a game like just out of the blue, but like Chiefs are a much more refined team. I think just well, not in that sense. I just mean their play style is a lot more macro oriented than compared to Direwolves. So I don't see how Regicide get a foot in here.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with the bold prediction on this one. I'm gonna go for 2-1. I'm gonna go 2-1. Yeah. That's pretty bold, right? I don't know.
2-1 them losing is bold. Like that's a good one.
Yeah, nice bold prediction.
There's such a big carry potential from Paradise, and I'm just gonna go all in on the chance that he just goes skewed. Seaman goes big. In. Yeah, and they just pick like a real hard team fighting comp, and you know, I mean, they're all insane mechanics, right? Like all of those players, and yeah, and I'm gonna go all in on the 2-1. Please don't roast me for this one, Nick. All right, next one is Legacy versus TM. So your boy only's in this one, Frae. So obviously it's a 2-0, right, for TM.
Me? It's still it's 2-1 to Legacy because.
Oh, but only's playing.
But like.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but this guy called Legacy Jordan Middleton is playing.
No. I want Legacy to make Gauntlet too, so I'll make only through the second and third game.
Okay.
They will stomp first game. It will be a perfect game. 15-0, 10-minute end, and then the next games I will tell only to throw, and he will accidentally AFK in Fountain. Just I mean prediction. This is just a vague prediction, but that's what's gonna happen.
All right, so you got a 2-1 to TM. Sorry, to Legacy.
To Legacy, yes.
Awesome. All right, Nick.
2-0 towards Legacy. Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like, Legacy are just a very good team at the moment. TM, I think, could use a little bit more work, particularly playing bot side again. Playing like Legacy will be playing bottom side. TM will be playing towards top side. And I think that Legacy are just much better at playing against bottom side. Like, I think that Low and T-Gun are just going to have a very tough time in this series, and then maybe TM get advantages in the top side, but I think that Lost is just going to be so built for success in the drafting phase and the way that the game is going to be played, that TM won't be able to like take him down, and Legacy will just win.
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree with you. 180 carry is going to have Nunu. The other's not going to have Nunu, so therefore... Farm with Nunes probably going to win out in this year. It's just such a skewed matchup, right? Like when you sure Low been playing better than you expect, but like when you just think like Lost versus Low, it just comes up as such a skewed matchup in your head, right? Like just saying those words out loud just screams like this is gonna go so hard to the bot lane of Legacy. So I gotta agree with you. Gotta go bold and go against only for the 2-0 to Legacy.
That's rough.
It's rough. All right, so final one, Direwolves versus Abyss. I'm gonna go last on this one. I'm gonna make one of you guys do it. I'll make Nick go first.
All right, 2-0 towards Direwolves.
No.
That hesitation.
This is betrayal. This is like top 10 anime betrayals, man. Like
this top 10 anime betrayals. No, I was when Rez came on the show, he said that if Abyss aren't able to show their potential, he's going to be hurt. He was hurt by a team, and I was hurt by Abyss last week. I gave them 2-1 prediction. I thought I thought that they had the second game in the bag. I thought it was going to be a good performance, and they're going to be able to execute. But I just don't think that the problems. I think the problems they have as a team, are just something that you can't necessarily work through in a week. And I think that Darwin's are just a much harder of an opponent than Chiefs at the moment. So I think it's going to be 2-0. But obviously the caveat with Abyss is just like maybe the laners of Abyss just like get ahead, and they manage to like take one game. That's going to be it. Like, but if it's like I just think that the Darwin's are just going to be very strong in the early game in the lanes, and I think that Abyss are just going to have a very tough time creating lane advantages and being able to take out even a single game.
Alrighty. So I will have to. I'm gonna go the same way. I'm gonna go to Outlaws.
Where's the face?
I really want, like, if Abyss had taken that game, like if they, if when Luch solo killed Swiffer, and they, and if they just, if they just rotated top, took top tower, did Rift Herald, even if they'd rotated bot and just taken bottom tower and then gone top, and closed out the game, I could have done it. But I'm not even confident that even if Abyss shit on all three lanes, I'm not confident that they will close out against the Direwolves. And to be honest, Seb had a really hard time. And to be fair, it does kind of look like Seb is being dragged around a bit, to an extent. But if he had a hard time against Spooks, then Shimfire is just gonna have a walk in the park, right? So I don't fancy Abyss's chances. Frae?
2-1.
2-1.
2-1. Jesus Christ.
Bold prediction, guys. Doesn't even matter. Do I need to predict these? This week's predictions are a bit like, like, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna say 2-1 anyways. I think Abyss can take one game. I believe in Luch. I'm ready for Luch to pull out his patented new top with both Hex Tech Gunblade items.
Luch is gonna lock in Oriana again, except he's not gonna build like Morello's, he's gonna build Tia.
Yeah, the Tia.
Roll
There
up,
it is.
then the Morello's, and then it's just like old OCS Luch is back. He's gonna just like kick. Like Parvy's actually just gonna leave the game, invade Chiefs' room, do a punch on with not Daiwa's booth. He's gonna do a punch on with, I don't even know who from the Dial was, but he's going to punch on someone. Luch is going to farm top lane and mid lane simultaneously, get 20 CS per minute, and
just do that invade, man. Like,
and then when you get
no, in actual seriousness, that kind of bring it back. How do Abyss win this series?
it's straight up just through individual. Maybe I think the only way they do it, realist, like I don't think Fantix is gonna really die 1v1. I think it's gonna be coming through Parbu. Like if it's just some weird like Renekton into Camille matchup or something like that, and Parbu and Chippies like do some weird duel. Parbu gets ahead, then Luch like roams top, they get another kill on Chippies, and Chippies falls behind and bot side is enabled. I think that's really the way that Abyss is going to be able to take that one game. But like I think that if there's like a 1v1 that Chippies is confident in taking, he's going to win that 1v1 like 90% of the time. Like he's easily the best top laner in OC right now, so that win condition is very slim for Abyss.
All right, what about the man with the faith? What does he think?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how they win, but I still have the faith. I mean, something could happen. Maybe Fantix breaks his arm again. Like whatever he did to his arm. Like, I believe in Abyss. They have like 3 carries. Like that's the thing though. Like they have the carries. Well, like I said before, they're all like opportunistic carries who like need that opportunity presented to them, and like Dial's just gonna be so methodical. I think maybe if they disrespect him, I think Dials might disrespect them a bit. Take a couple fights in the jungle, and Abyss is gonna snowball off that, and then can I do like 2-0.95? Like they almost win that game, like against Chiefs.
Yeah,
they almost win it, and then they throw again.
It's 2-0, but Abyss is going to get a gigantic lead and not able to close.
In one of the games.
I mean, the way I see this victory coming out is if Abyss get pressure in particularly mid and in the top lane, and if Shimfire like kind of struggles to get the tracking down to Seb, and maybe Seb's able to get some ganks off, that's going to be the way in which I see the victory coming out from Abyss. But yeah, again, I'm not confident in it. So yeah, I guess we're all pretty much agreed. Pretty pretty similar predictions for the week.
This
So-
week's pretty.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty one-sided week. Outside of that Sin versus AV, that is if you're gonna watch one matchup this week, watch Sin versus AV because that is gonna be the exciting one for the week, or it should be the exciting one for the week. Alrighty, so the third topic, we're kind of gonna go into some OCS now. So moving away from the OPL. So OCS starts on this Friday, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, for anybody that doesn't know, both Nick and Frae are a part of the Abyss Academy team. So Frae is the mid laner and Nick is the washed-up coach. So, yeah, I guess these questions will kind of perhaps be some bias coming in from those two. So, I guess the first question that I have is what are like the top, I guess maybe 3 teams in this OCS, the split, who are the teams that are going to be contesting? Like, because if I asked you who's going to win, then obviously you guys are just going to be like Abyss. So I'll ask you for the top 3. Should we go Frae first?
Athletico, Abyss, Legacy, Genesis.
Why?
Not in any order.
I got Sin Academy, Legacy Genesis, and Abyss as top 3. When it comes to Legacy Genesis, like I think they've got a pretty solid roster. Particularly Harry. I think Harry is quite a strong mid laner. We put him on the top 10 list, which people didn't like, but I think that Harry is quite a strong player. I think that Tilting and Drakon in the bottom lane are quite solid. Artifans is a player that has impressed me, particularly in his carry champions, and I think Barbib is just he's sort of similar to Carbon and Schönfries that he likes to track a lot, and I think that Legacy will just be I think that towards the end of last bit they were playing like a lot better League of Legends, and they've upgraded their roster quite significantly, and they're still keeping that core of the team, Barbib and Harry. So I think they're just going to be very, very solid. I think they're going to be second place. Whereas for Sin Academy, I think that they've got a lot more. I think they've got a pretty solid roster as well. Praeless is in particular a player that stands out to me, as well as Squidgy and Yuzuki in the bottom lane. I think that their solo laners are a bit weaker than Legacy Genesis' solo laners and Abyss Academy's solo laners, but I think that Praeless and Yuzuki and Squidgy are quite strong players in their own rights. And I think that there'll be quite a strong third in OCS.
Right. Yeah. I actually, just to touch on that point with people not really liking the list. Like some people complaining about it who I've literally never seen play League of Legends before, or like they've never been in OCS, and I just hadn't watched them in OOL, and like they're playing this first competitive split, and I'm just like, well, how the fuck am I meant to judge you if I've never seen you play competitive? Like maybe you are a really good player and you can do really well in this split, but these are just 10 players, which me and Nick thought they're not the only 10 players. They're going to play in OPL, obviously. There's going to be a lot of turnover, but they're just 10 players which we've had a lot of experience watching. If you are a player which you think you deserve to be on there, if you haven't played OCS or anything before, chances are me and Nick just haven't really had a lot of experience seeing you play. Yeah. Anyways, I kind of went off topic there a bit. Yeah. So in terms of the same question for you, like you mentioned the same Athletico, and what was the other team you mentioned? Legacy Genesis as well, right, Frae? All right. Tell me a little bit about Athletico.
Don't tell too much because they're a week 1 matchup.
Oh.
Don't tell too much.
Yeah. They haven't released the rosters. I don't even know.
Yeah, like OCS teams as general, like I feel like aside from like Harry and Babbitt, I like that potential, right? Like they're the potential teams that just haven't shown off yet. Like for some reason when they play competitive, they just tend to be very low impact. But I feel like they honestly, like it feels like such a bad word, but they can be really good. Atletico, like they have decent players as well. Like I feel like all of OCS though, like their rosters are all pretty, like the top tier teams are all pretty good mechanically. They don't really lack any mechanics anywhere. It's just their decision making. They put themselves in bad situations a lot of the time. I feel like Athletico are sort of like that Regicide, where they have that potential to just like take games. Yeah, like but Doenka, like I don't know, I don't think he has the best decision making, but he does have like a carry potential if he gets on something like a Yasuo or something really cheesy.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about him.
I mean, I coached Bedoink, so you know these guys are involved, but I'm not involved at all with the Abyss Academy team. So yeah, I mean, Bedoink, you know, I coached him. There were certain champions which he could just do really well on in scrims. I guess Yasuo being like the most famous, right? So yeah, that player does have a lot of potential, and he just seems like kind of player that just does what he wants, right? With the meta, just kind of plays what he's good at, and is good at what he plays. Alrighty, so I guess the next question I have, because the bottom of the OPL has traditionally been like quite weak, right? Like I don't think an 8th place team has ever defended their spot. Like you got like Hellions, you got like Infernum, Sudden Fear. Feel like
X5.
X5, yep. This split though, TM, Regicide, and you know the team spot, they all look really strong. So can any of these OCS rosters relegate an OPL team?
I think realistically, it's unless if a team like really shoots up when it comes to whatever reason, like one player just turns out to be really good and they needed a little bit more experience. I think that the only team that's realistically going to be able to relegate an OPL team will be Abyss. Obviously, I'm really biased because it is a team I'm working with. However, I just think to be able to beat the OPL teams, you need to be able to have the individual roster across the entire board as well as competitive experience. Like Legacy Genesis, they've got they've got 2 entirely rookie players. Tilting is more or less a rookie. Sin Academy, Sin Academy Tekka is as a rookie. Praeless is relatively new to the competitive as jungle, and Chaz It Up hasn't been playing for a whole lot. And I think when it just comes down to like an OPL team, you're just going to need to have like more competitive experience than what they really have. Whereas Abyss, we have obviously like Frae's been playing in OPL for a really long time. Kuden's been playing in OPL, and I think those two in particular, like in a best of 3 series, it's just going to show through that Abyss have a bit more experience than the other OCS teams when it comes to placing an OPL team. So this is really like preemptive because OCS hasn't come, but at least at the moment, my general impression is that the only OPL team that will be able, the only OCS team that will be able to relegate an OPL team will be us. But that is obviously extremely subjective and subject to change.
All right, Frae, what about you, buddy? Same thing?
Pretty much. I mean, I think we have the potential, at least, to use that word once again. But like the OPL teams are really strong. I feel like the split. I think Regicide, like TM, honestly, if they just spend their 10 weeks correctly, the 10 weeks they have in OPL, like I don't think anyone realistically expects them to make Gauntlet run. Like they could, but all they need to do really is just like use that experience against the good teams, because they don't need the best players across the board in order to win competitive. Like competitive is so much more about macro nowadays. It just doesn't. And I don't think like any OCS team right now, at least, matches up to that. Like obviously we're not even into week 1 of OCS, so it's very hard to judge. But right now, I feel like, yeah, experience-wise, probably we can. Abyss is the only team that can, look for a potential relegation, and obviously Harry and Babbitt. Like I have faith in them if they pop off. Like I had so much faith in them in OCS as well, but like last split, but it didn't pan out. It's gonna be rough though. I think TM's gonna get a lot better, and I have my faith in my boy only.
All right. Well, Frae, I guess a final question before we go through the week's matchups for you. What do you think of the mid laners in the OCS this split? Are there any which you, I guess, would like to mention as people you think would be really good, other than yourself, of course?
There's obviously Harry, right?
Yeah, but I've mentioned Harry so much already.
Yeah.
Harry's just like that player. Like I said, he's so good, but he's just for some reason doesn't show up.
Yeah.
When he needs to. Like most of the OCS players, like I feel like this is the same way with OPL. There's just the mid lane role is pretty stacked in like OPL mid laners. I would say they're all like at this really pretty high level, and it's like you're not gonna just put one over the other, or even if they are better than the other player, you won't see that through just mid lane like 1v1s. No one's bad enough to get solo killed, and I feel like that's the same situation with OCS. But it's just about the decision making. Like everyone has the mechanical skill in mid lane at least for OCS, to perform in those 1v1s. It's just the decision making before that happens, like the health value that they're at, the gold items, the objectives they've gotten before that. So like, I wouldn't say anyone's really stood out because I've played it. I know most of these players from solo queue already, and no one's really like competitive is just such a different playing field. Yeah, I can't really say anyone's really impressed me too much.
All right. Well, you know what I can't wait
I
for?
mean, I've played against the likes of like Triple and either. No, I was just saying I have played against the likes of like Triple and like Swiffer and Fantix and OPL. So I guess the bar is set pretty high for you to be like, oh, you're amazing at this game. Like they're all good. They're just nothing exceptional.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is a pretty high bar to set, and I mean, I think you got quite a decent amount of respect whilst you were playing in the OPL. If I remember watching scrims, like there were so many scrims where like a lot of the team was like collapsing, and then Frae's just like 3-0 up on the enemy laner on Oriana, or like like what are some of the other champions? You used to play like shitloads of champions, but I won't actually tell people those champions because you guys are playing on Friday.
My chapel.
Yeah, but like there were a lot of champions, and you'd be like the only player on the team that was really like not feeding. So I think you did generate like a decent amount of respect whilst you're playing OPL. So yeah, I guess
I think
that's
something else with OCS is that I think there's a extremely big divide between the top 4 and the bottom 4. Like I'm not even sure of the rosters for the bottom, like some of the teams, like Alpha Sydney, I'm not even like Alpha Sydney, Outlaws, like those teams in particular. I'm not, and Corvidae, like I'm not even particularly sure what their rosters are. So I think there's just going to be like in OCS a really big divide between the top 4 teams, which I think are going to be relatively even. Obviously, me being biased, I think we'll end up on top. Surprise, surprise. And then but I don't really expect too many of the top 4 teams to drop games, but it is best of 1, so yeah.
I'm just waiting for Frae to get like solo killed like 5 times on Friday.
I know it's gonna happen.
Just like some weird ass champion. Just ends. Yeah. We'll like have Nick on next week. So Nick, how did OCS go? What, you lost?
Week one. Baby steps.
Yeah. So if you get solo killed 5 times, then we'll bring you back on next week, all right? That's
5
the deal.
times.
Yeah, 5 times.
That's rough.
That's rough.
Wait, 5 solo kills? That's I mean I can do like.
No, wait,
3.
I thought it was 5 solo deaths.
Yeah, like getting solo killed 5 times.
Yeah, getting solo killed 5 times.
What if I like throw myself at him and he doesn't kill me? Like, what if I'm just like I just run it down mid, like and he just doesn't kill me? Because he doesn't want me. Oh, that's.
Yeah, I guess
5, man.
In terms of some of those rosters you don't know though, like I don't know what it is, but some of the teams which are in that bottom 4, I guess particularly Alpha Sydney, like every split, I've just thought, oh, okay, they don't really have that much of a roster coming into the split, and they like pull out some players from later, and they never like go at the very top end, but they're normally like sitting like quite comfortably in the middle of the pack, right?
Yeah, as Leon said, like oftentimes like micro skill isn't as. There isn't much of a discrepancy in individuals as you expect when it comes into the competitive scene, so I'm not going to say it's going to be like blowouts, but I think that especially the top 4 teams, we've been scrimming for around a month, and a lot of the times the players are more experienced, where the Corvidae, Alpha Sydney, Outlaws, I'm not sure what their rosters are, but I'm pretty confident I would know their rosters if they were picking up players that I had much experience with, or at least knew, who had more experience, so I just think that the experience thing is just such an important factor when it comes to competitive.
It's
alrighty.
Yeah, it definitely is just that because like the individual skill, like maybe there is one, like maybe out of 100 times you do this player is gonna do it right 99 times, and then the other player is gonna be right like 90 times. Like, because it's a big discrepancy if you think about it. Like you over time, but when we talk about like competitive best of 1s. The sample size you're having is like so small that it's like the chances of them making that mistake is just like it's not there. And if they don't make that mistake, then you're the same player pretty much. It's all about like that sort of like experience that you have with making plays, making calls in that 1 second or 2 seconds, the inches that you're getting. as a team. Like that's also why you see like these superstar teams pick up like players and not perform, because it's just you can't just play off micro in this meta anymore. Players are good enough that they won't just like let you out micro them, even if they're giving up like 10 CS. That TS like to like avoid dying, that 10 CS isn't going to lead to like winning a game. So yeah, it's just going to be like largely based on experience. That's why I feel like the gap is going to be pretty big between the lower tier teams as well.
Alrighty. So I guess we'll go through the week 1 matchups for OCS, get some predictions as who's going to be the winner. So I believe the first matchup we've got is Sin Academy versus Outlaws, right?
Yeah, I have to give that one to Sin Academy. I don't know what Outlaws roster is, and I know what Sin Academy's roster is. And I think Sin Academy's roster, as I said, I think they're a top 3 team, and I think they're quite a strong team, and I think that Outlaws, like, I don't know their roster, so I'm just gonna have to give it to Sin Academy.
Right.
What if they bring in SKT? You're gonna look like an idiot.
Yeah.
2-1 Sin Academy.
Actually, I think if Faker is playing for Outlaws the split, then I think he's the one who looks like an idiot.
Wait a second. I mean, yeah, it's Sin Academy. There's not much. Sin Academy is a good team.
I mean, did you mention for this team was it Squidgy and Yuzuki?
Yes. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean that's a bot lane which probably could be an OPL, right? Like on the bottom end, but probably could be in OPL. So
yeah,
I think that's a very strong lane coming out from them.
What if?
All right.
What if? Where they playing?
Outlaws.
I forgot. Sin Academy versus who?
Outlaws.
Yeah. Outlaws.
What if Outlaws play Nunu? What then?
Oh no.
Then Squeegee's fucked. You didn't even know, man.
I think
their coaching.
Sorry, did I forget to mention like you need the Lost with the Nunu, right?
Yeah.
Like
No. Any AD suffices. Soul Strike's just like hey guys, give me $10, I'll tell you how to strat. Fucking pick Nunu.
Oh god. All right.
GG.
Next matchup we got is Athletico versus Abyss. I feel like I know which one you guys are gonna say. So
the one starting with A.
Frae, do you want to take this one
away? Can I just say Athletico? So I win either way. Like if I win, Athletico, yeah. If I win, then I feel good. If I lose, then I whatever. Then I was right. Athletico is gonna win 1-0.
I guess who are the stars on this team for you guys?
It's Bedoink and Dan have been playing together for quite a while, and neither of them have failed to finish. I think they finished 3rd place every time, so they are quite strong players in their own rights. They play like a different style. So Athletico, I think, are a team that are very capable of art sets. Like Dan and Bedoink, they just play Bedoink especially. Like he plays a very unorthodox champion pool. So like next week if we lose, I wouldn't be like as shocked as I guess myself looking outwards if I wasn't coaching Abyss. I just think that Athletico have a very good style when it comes to upsetting teams, and their roster is very solid. Like I don't really think they have many weaknesses when it comes to their roster, but obviously I do have to go for Abyss for this series because I just think that we'll be able to take it in the end.
All right. Frae, do you have anything you want to say on the matchup?
Oh, I was just agreeing with General. I mean, like if it was our best out of 3, I would say like we win 90% of the time. But best out of 1, I think Athletico can pull something out. But like I said, I'm hedging my bets, mate. Athletico 1-0.
All right. Next one we got is Alpha Sydney versus Corvidae, but I don't think either of us know the rosters, right?
No, it's I don't.
I don't
know the roster.
You don't know roster. I don't know roster. Frae, do you know the roster? Okay,
Yeah,
awesome. We'll just skip this one then. Noxide versus Legacy Genesis. Now I know both of these rosters, and as much as I love my boy Somber,
I've known Somber for so long.
He's such a cool guy, right? Like he's a really smart individual. Like, but I just think that Legacy Genesis roster. Yeah, I'm gonna have to side with Legacy Genesis. Do you guys agree with that? Are there any, I guess, standout players?
I think this will be the most one-sided game of the week. Noxide, I know the roster. I don't particularly think it's the greatest. I think Legacy are I think they are a very strong team, like when it comes to relative to the OCS, and I think that Legacy will just it doesn't not I think regardless of the picks, I think Legacy will have a very strong showing, and I think it's going to be a pretty quick game where Legacy will win.
I feel like this is the game that Genesis need. Hayri and Babib just need to fucking pop up.
And
actually
confidence
show that
game
they
for them
carry
as well.
potential. Yeah, they need to like show that they can hard carry, because this is a game where, like, I feel like them as players, they do really really well, or they're kind of just like non-existent impact wise. But like this is the game where they need to really show that they can be the dynamic duo, because they're expected to carry their team, right? Like, I mean, Genesis is a solid roster, but they have Babib, Hayri, who obviously considered the star players. Yeah, Legacy Genesis 1-0.
I do kind of want to touch on the bot lane a little bit for Legacy Genesis, and I suppose I could mention the top lane too. Like, I feel like, you know, like Tilting and Drakon, right?
Yeah.
Both of those players are regularly really high up in solo queue, right? Like Tilting, you know, like when he first came in, people were like, oh, it's a Sona one trick. And then, you know, they're like, oh, he'll fall out of Challenger. Then he just stays there for a really long time. And then I hear like the same thing about Drakon. Like, these players obviously do have something behind them, right? So potentially seeing some surprises from the bot lane too. I don't know.
I think so. Like, potentially, but then this brings me back to the point of like solo queue is really like, you obviously, if you can get someone who's 900 LP, like you wouldn't get someone who's like 200, right? Like, unless there's like massive communication errors, or like there's something another point that would like really affect it. It's just like, obviously the 900 LP player probably does have more something behind them that's better, but you know, I don't think it's gonna show enough. Like, if the enemy bot lane just doesn't disrespect them, like, I don't see how they can really get any advantages through themselves. Like, right now, mid jungle, like as a duo, is very volatile if you have the better matchup. So like, I mean, Tilting and Drakon, yeah, they can show up. Outer Ferns can show up, but like I said, most OCS players are good enough to show up. It's just you know, I don't know if it's going to be the point that Legacy Genesis play the game through.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess my point was more that it just kind of opens up more. Because, I mean, Tilting looked like kind of poor, but that was like compared to like OPL, right? When he was playing in the OPL.
Hello.
So the level of competition for him is going to have seriously declined relative to what he's, I guess, kind of like used to playing against now, right? And then the other guy is Otterfins, who, you know, like towards the end of last split was looking very good on Noxide, right? Playing like the Fiora, like very hard carry oriented style. So yeah, I can definitely see like why you guys put this team really highly. There's a lot of, I guess, I'm gonna steal your word, Frae, which is 100% originally what Frae's word. Potential.
That's my word.
Yeah, no one's ever used that word before, guys. Like,
never.
It's Frae's. Yeah, you have to pay him a royalty if you want to use it.
I actually copyrighted it.
Copyrighted it.
CLG owes me a lot of money.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of the point which I want to make on Legacy Genesis, and yeah, Noxide roster, I just don't think it can compete with this Legacy potential. Nick, anything else from you, or anything else from your Frae on OCS for week 1, or should we look to end up the show?
It's Noxide's mid laner. Just as a real quick.
And it's the Ari one trick.
He's the main roster. Okay. Nothing else left except TM to 1-2. Like
1-2.
Guaranteed.
Bold.
I put the first 2 as well, because they're actually the winners. Like, but you know, Legacy won on paper, but you know, TM win at heart.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we can look to round out the show. Thank you everybody for watching, and thanks for coming on, Frae. I really appreciate it. You don't have a fidget spinner by chance, do you?
What?
Do you use fidget spinners?
How fucking no?
No. All right. Okay.
I have a Z figurine. That's Savvy game.
Wait, you have a Z figurine? That's so cool.
So this was Suman's. I've inherited it.
Oh, that's so sad.
Hey, you know, me and Suman was like, oh, I want to play Assassins versus you. And I was like, oh yeah. And then he just like leaves, and we were like, oh yeah, let's fucking play LeBlanc Z. I remember saying it to him because I was like,
where you literally stole his Z.
No, we were like, fuck control mages. Let's play LeBlanc Z. And then he dropped out of OPL, and now I'm out of OPL. So it's not meant to be, man. It's not meant to be.
Wait, but he's back in OPL.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm out.
Oh
so
man.
Like until next time we meet.
So sad. I mean, like Raz was on last week, and he was like whipping out like like a chief, he had like a chief shirt on, and he was like, like the fidget spinner and stuff. So I'm like, maybe Frae has something cool.
Nothing
Oh wait,
cool.
is it?
I have a Teemo hat, and I got
You
two
got a
challenge.
Timo hat and a Z icon. Was that also from Sebi, or is that a?
I got this from Landslide. Some
Oh,
fucking random land that I went. I have a Rammus hat as well, actually. I mean, I don't have a Chiefs jersey because, I mean, I'm avid Abyss supporter. I have a comically large pencil.
A comically like. All right, there we go. You see, this is gonna be like a thing now each week.
You know how everyone thinks I'm a tall Asian guy? I'm actually like 2 foot. Just a normal.
Alright.
Just included for you.
I think
Alrighty.
that we wrap up the show.
Yeah, on an oversized pencil, a Z figurine, and a Timo hat, we'll round up the show. Thanks again for coming on, and don't forget to like and subscribe.